keeping promises, it's so hard. I promised in this video that I wouldn't say anything about stats, so of course you'd expect me to keep my promise, right? But I have a pretty good reason, and I think you'll agree, actually. And it's the fact that, well, I've already mentioned this on my blog before, but I'm aware that not everyone keeps track of it, so it's worth repeating here as well. It's the fact that we managed to figure out the base HP of certain new Pokémon that were available for play in the demo at the Pokémon Game Show. And this all comes from the fact that the max HP for each Pokémon was always the same, meaning that just about every variable on the Pokémon, IVs, natures, personality values, and such, appears to have been frozen in order to make sure that everyone gets the same experience out of the demo and doesn't have any variations because of crappy IV rolls or bad natures, stuff like that, you know. However, one thing that appears to have not been frozen is the trainer ID and secret ID. The reason why I'm saying that is because someone lucked out into getting a shiny Sylveon, and the trainer ID and secret ID are involved in the formula that determines shininess. Oddly enough, this means that if you have an egg that would hatch into a shiny in your own game, then if you trade it to someone else, odds are it's not going to be a shiny, because the trainer ID and secret ID of the Pokemon are different. So I guess you could say shininess is determined upon hatching for that reason, and not when the egg is first generated. But enough about that. Back to what I was saying about the base HP of these Pokemon. As it turns out, there was a level 100 Mewtwo in that demo that always had 353 HP, which corresponds to max IVs and no EVs whatsoever. Which makes sense, because if you're going to freeze the values, might as well max the IVs out, and well, since the Pokemon have never been used, well, give them no EVs whatsoever. So, as a result, if we extend that assumption to all the Pokemon that are on your team in the demo, we can find out that Sylveon has base 95 HP, which just so happens to fit with the usual 60, 65, 65, 95, 110, 130 distribution that evolutions tend to have. So that, I think, we can take it for granted. It's confirmed. Sylveon has base 95 HP. And as for the other Pokemon, Chespin will have base 57 HP, which among all the starters is second only to Tepig. And Fennekin will have either 40 or 41, we still don't know for sure, and Froakie will have 42, so this means both have very low HP. For a comparison's sake, the starters, the base forms, that is, with the lowest base HP, are Charmander and Cyndaquil, both at 39. And also, Helioptile, which was in the demo, it will have a base HP of either 45 or 46. I think we can expect it to be 45, because usually base stats are multiples of 5, but that's not always the case, so it could be 46 as well. And speaking of Helioptile, we now know one of the abilities that it can have, and, well, since it's a Pokemon that, well, its name gives it away, it likes the sun. It thrives in the sun, so you'd expect it to get an ability that allows it to perform well in the sun, right? Nope! Dry Skin! A rain ability, if I've ever seen one. That's right, the Pokemon that allegedly thrives in the sun is hurt by the sun. Now I'm just going to take a second to put Excadrill in the lead here, since Lilligant starts to run low on PP. But, yeah. Helioptile! Hurt by the sun. am not even kidding either! But, you know, in a way, it sort of makes sense because it's an electric type, and electric types typically are ones that thrive in rain. Well, especially special attackers anyway. Disregard what I said if it turns out to be a physical attacker, because the main reason why electric does so well in rain is because thunder suddenly has perfect accuracy. But yeah, if it's a special attacker, then it will make at least some iota of sense, you know, it having dry skin from a purely metagame-based standpoint. Of course, it doesn't change the fact that the ability itself directly contradicts the lore of the Pokémon, which is just completely stupid. Then again, this is probably going to be one of 2, maybe 3 abilities. So I wouldn't panic just yet. Maybe we're going to get the best of both worlds, and we're going to get an ability that is going to do well in the rain, ergo dry skin, and another one that will be better in the sun. At least I'm hoping that's what happens. Oh, and also, I think I said last time that I would try to refrain from talking about Mega Evolutions for a while. Well, you know what I say to that? To be fair, though, I won't stay on the subject for very long. It's just that there was one thing that I completely missed, to be perfectly honest with you, and is the prospect as one of my regulars, which is Mattman324, aka the Shiny Fur Alligator, aka the Man of a Million Names, is that one move that could potentially be interesting with Mega Kangaskhan if you get to use it twice a turn, is Circle Throw. Because that means that you get to inflict twice the usual amount of damage from entry hazards. So, just imagine the havoc you could wreak by using Circle Throw twice in the same turn. Of course, it's probably going to be a suboptimal strategy, especially considering that Kangaskhan has fairly acceptable attack, and that you're going to get to attack twice a turn, so you're going to be a lot more tempted to use something like, for example, Return or Earthquake, or a move like that over using Circle Throw twice to rack up entry hazard damage. But it's still something that could be interesting, especially if the stat boosts Kangaskhan gets are more defensive in nature. Okay, so, I kept it short. And by short, I mean under 2 minutes. Hey, it's short by my standards. Beggars can't be choosers. So I'm going to move on to something that I wanted to talk about for a long time, and okay, the Psychic is talking about, no doubt, about Volcarona, which is another Pokemon that seems to be closely related to the sun in its lore, even though it's got 2 abilities, neither of which have to do with the sun, and in fact, it doesn't even have access to one of these 2 abilities, which is Swarm. The other one is, of course, Flame Body, which we've already seen in action a few times in this Let's Play. Hang on a second. Did I go over there? Yeah, I think so. So now all that's left to do from here is to go south. So yeah, my next subject is something that I wanted to talk about all the way back in Clay's gym, since it was appropriate then, though I guess it's still appropriate now, considering that I'm in a cave of all places. But then Mega Evolutions happened, and well, this got delayed until now, is the fact that, you know, and it's something that's not really exclusive to Pokemon, it seems to be standard fare in gaming in general, the fact that Earth-based attacks seem to be a bit more powerful than other attacks at the expense of not being able to hurt flying enemies. Of course, it's very obvious in Pokemon because there is only one move in the entire game. Well, 2. The other one's Return, and, well, the third one would be Frustration. But you get what I mean. Other than these 2, the only attack... Oh, wow! That was actually pretty cool! That thing sprang up in front of me, and here! Have a free red shard! Not that I'm complaining, though, to be fair, I still have quite a bunch of these. I would much rather have some of the other colors, considering I'm going to need a whole bunch of them to teach Drain Punch and Giga Drain to some stuff. But yeah, the one move that has no drawback, 100 accuracy, with a power in the triple digits, is Earthquake. Of course, there are moves that have a higher damage output than 100, no drawback, but lower accuracy than 100, such as, for example, Fire Blast, Mega Horn, and, well, I guess, what am I saying? There are a lot of legendary exclusive moves, like, for example, Searing Shot, Fusion Bolt, Fusion Flare, Bolt Strike, Psy Strike, Blue Flare, but other than these, man, I'm really making a bad point for myself, huh? I imagine a bunch of people will have already rushed to the comments to correct me, then when they hear me saying that, they're gonna delete it, so at least if I see a whole bunch of comments removed in the comment section, I will know exactly what it is. But among the moves that have a pretty good distribution, Earthquake is definitely the most notable one. And it's funny. Ooh, Swords Dance! Do one! Let's get rid of Hone Claws. Although perfect accuracy on Rock Slide is nice, even more power is always better. But yeah, it's funny in a way, because when you stop and think about it, even in Generation 1, flying versus ground was not the only immunity in that game. For example, normal and ghost, were immune to each other, and well, it's true that normal had some pretty dang good moves in Gen 1, like, for example, Body Slam, Slash, Hyper Beam. Yes, Hyper Beam was a really good move in Generation 1, so you can pick up your jaws, those of you who only joined later on in the series and only know Hyper Beam as a complete piece of crap. But yeah, Ghost, on the other hand, all it had was Lick and Nightshade, so if they were trying to make up for, you know, that type being immune to normal and vice versa, well, I guess they failed miserably. There's also, well, Electric versus Ground is kind of peculiar in that, other than Earthquake, there also were a whole bunch of really powerful moves that were introduced in Generation 1. You know, Surf, Thunderbolt, Ice Beam, Flamethrower, 95 power, 100 accuracy, and other than Surf, 10% chance of an added effect. So these moves were really good, and they just don't make them like they used to. Well, there's been Sludge Wave as sort of a poison counterpart since then. And man, these things really don't give a whole lot of experience. Hey, again, thanks for the free shard, though. But yeah, the Roggenrollas don't give a whole lot of experience for the time I spend killing them because they've got sturdy. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to run from these guys, and I'm just going to kill everything else with Slash, since it doesn't take a whole lot more time than just running away to kill them with Slash. But other than that, yeah. But what I'm trying to get at here is that it's kind of funny, the favor treatment the ground type got over its immunity when other types were immune to certain types, and they didn't really get the same treatment because, well, one might ask, why the hell am I trying to make sense of Gen 1 balance? It's just silly. There's no balance whatsoever. Many types were given great moves for no apparent reason, and many types are utterly snubbed for no apparent reason. Types like Fighting, Flying, Bug, Ghost, Dragon, name it, these sucked more often than not, just because they had completely crap moves. And you know, it's sad that I'm running out of time, because I wanted to keep this rant going for a while, because I still had many things to say about this issue, especially how it evolved into later generations. So I'm going to cover that next time, and hopefully I won't get sidetracked. But you know how likely that is?